Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Jason Skeesick. Jason is a U.S. Army veteran, coach, and entrepreneurial evangelist. He is a father, husband, fighter, and carrier of heavy things. His company, Spear and Clover, helps businesses with passionate leaders, talented teams, and strong playbooks go from contenders to championship dynasty organizations. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You can find Jason hosting the weekly Spear and Clover podcast available on YouTube and across all the audio platforms. His goal setting process is an innovative practice that the highest performers in the sports, business, and entertainment industries use to achieve their near impossible. And this is what Jason is going to help us accomplish today. So I'm really excited to have this discussion. Jason, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Jeff. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on and sharing your audience with me. And I am really excited. I've enjoyed our conversation up until now, and I have no doubt it'll only get better from here.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. So, I was, as I was going through your, your bio, you got a lot of commas in there. You've done a lot of stuff, and you're really making it happen not only for your family but also for your business, and you're helping out other businesses as well. Can you please take a minute and tell us a little bit about who you are and what makes you so amazing?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that comment. I'm not sure how amazing I am, but I will tell you about who I am. And so for starters, my whole life, I've had one core value since I was born and another core value that I picked up later in life. But I'll start with the one that I was born with, which I call spirit of the puppy. Spirit of the puppy is, other people call it ADD, other people call it entrepreneur's disease. But basically that's high energy. I'm really, really drawn into things that I'm passionate about. And I really have no time for things that I'm not passionate about. And so as a young kid, I was removed from regular school in first grade, and I was put in a behavior disorder school from first grade through seventh grade. And that accomplished two things. Number one, it allowed me to work at my own pace, which was great. But number two, it had me around people that maybe I didn't want to be around and maybe were not great people. And so so it was a good way to sort of like to let me learn at my own pace. Coming out of school, my whole life, that spirit of the puppy was a big thing for me. I would get into snowboarding and I would make that into a career. I would go work at the snowboarding hill. I would get into working at the auto shop because I loved cars. I liked clothing. I'd get into working at the mall. And then eventually I got into poker and pool, and I got heavily into gambling, which wasn't good for a 20-year-old kid who didn't really know what he was doing or have much self-control. And so I joined the United States Army. The United States Army is where I got my second core value, which I call military mindset. And so finally, I was able to balance out this spirit of the puppy, this real passion and exuberance to try new things and meet new people and have a lot of fun with discipline and hard work and responsibility and stepping forward when there was an opportunity to help out. And so between those two things, the spirit of the puppy and the military mindset, that is really what makes me who I am today. And so I have the benefit of this boundless gas tank to do things that I'm passionate about. But now I have sort of the structure of adding that military mindset to make sure that I keep things on the rails and fulfill on the obligations that I have to myself, to my family, to my team, to my clients. So from there, I did two things getting back from the military. I did one, I went to school for finance and went into the world of corporate finance. That's very much military mindset. And the Clover was the spirit of the puppy was I opened a small CrossFit gym in a dusty fourth floor warehouse in Chicago. And I tried to do both of those things at the same time. And it wasn't until a few years in that I realized, I'm up in this high rise. I'm working on $50 million deals. I'm working on $20 million deals. I'm sitting across the table from millionaires. And the only thing I can think about is my little 90-person, $9,000 a month CrossFit gym that was not making much money at all. And so it was around that time that I decided that I was going to take a circuitous path to leave the corporate world and really focus on becoming a full-time entrepreneur and growing this tribe that I was so passionate about and that I just enjoyed so much. There's never been a time that I've been in the room with that group of people where I've lost energy. I always leave with more energy than I showed up with. And then the same can be said now. I've never had a call with somebody like you, with an entrepreneur or another visionary like yourself, and left that call without more energy than when I got on. So I'll be buzzing from this call. Go ahead. Sorry, I dive right in.
Yeah, I really like that description. I mean, first of all, like especially from what you learned from the military, is that you really get those skills of how to compartmentalize and think through, like what actually needs to be done, discard the things that don't need to be done, and it helps give you, a little bit of focus, in terms of attaining, focusing in on the mission, getting things done, things like that. And I can really see how the finance part would sort of mesh with that mentality, right? Because
Yeah.
numbers don't lie, right? It's like, go, when you're going through someone's balance sheet, they can try to hide things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that ain't gonna happen, right? So by mixing those two and having just those two skills, right? Being able to think about what it is that you need to make happen, that's really an asset, and it's an asset for whatever organization, whether it's managing your gym or managing a finance company. The
Hmm.
part I find fascinating here, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about it, is how do you how did you figure out that it is time to leave the finance company, knowing that you're throwing away or you're postponing, so to speak, the regular paycheck that automatically hits your bank account every 2 weeks, into something that is really dynamic. You could have a bad month, you could have a good month. In terms of the gym, how did you wrestle with that and really think about, okay, I'm going to prioritize my happiness, but at the same time, you're a family man. You have to pay the mortgage, you have to take care of your family, you have to make sure that everything's taken care of. How did that how did that battle play out?
Well, for starters, in hindsight, I can tell you that I'm a textbook entrepreneur. I have all the attributes of a textbook entrepreneur. I'm very risk. I welcome risk. I like to seek risk because I think I can get a better return with more risk. But I can tell you the exact day that I realized it in real time. I was sitting in that high rise working at this one of the biggest banks in the world on a deal with myself. It was my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss's boss, and then an entrepreneur. And two things occurred to me in that meeting. I remember the meeting and I could tell you this guy's name. Number one is, out of all those people at the table, I could only really see eye to eye. I was only really nodding when the entrepreneur was talking about his vision for what he wanted to use this money he was trying to borrow from us for. And everybody else was trying to come up with reasons why he couldn't or shouldn't. And that to me was a red alert. And then the second thing was my boss's 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 boss, or whatever it was. I know his name. I know approximately how much money he makes. It's a lot. That guy got up before me. He drove in from further out and from a further out suburb. He worked harder than I did all day. He left after me and he drove further to get home. I don't care how much money he makes. I don't want his life. And so as soon as I knew that I didn't want to be the top of the pyramid that I was currently at, I'm just the type of person I'm just not interested at all. If I don't want to win the game, then why on earth would I continue to play it? And so it was a pretty easy decision after that. And so, like I say, I took a circuitous path, but to be clear, I actually ran a business within a business for a friend of mine's operation while I was getting the gym on its legs. And then when I left that, I became a full-time entrepreneur.
I love how you articulated that, because basically what we're talking about here is, like, you saw the vision, right? You saw
Yeah.
what was possible, and you're just like, the hell with these guys, man. I don't want to wear a suit anymore. I don't want to wear a tie. Very similar to what happened with me. I got fired from so many jobs already. I just stopped trying. Right. And, fun fact for me is that no company on my LinkedIn profile exists in its current form today, except for one,
Hmm.
mine. Right.
Wow.
And, like, when I look back on it and just think about, all of those different, all of those different jobs, all of those different ways that I've, tried to reinvent my career or try to, gain a new skill or whatever, I just realized that I was always serving at the leisure of someone else.
Mhm.
Right. And it was just, and I was always, like 4 to 8 paychecks away from, financial disaster, which at a snap, you could be all of a sudden unemployed. And it happened to me a lot. And I'm like, something, to hell with this. Right. I am not going to do that anymore. And when I walked out, 15 years ago this month, to, from that experience, let me tell you, and I'm sure you went through this as well, it was scary. Who is going to pay for my Starbucks habit? Right. How am I going to pay for, how am I going to pay for the mortgage? How am I going to pay, like all this other stuff? Like, it's on me. right? And thank God, like I've been able to produce and make things happen, since then, which is great. I want to switch gears here and talk a little bit about like the process of how you help entrepreneurs, first of all, gain that clarity and also to achieve, the kind of things that, that they need. Because it's one thing, I'm going to pick apart this persona a little bit. It's one thing to be this alpha male, ex-army, like, hey, you got to go do this. And this is how you do it. You come across with a lot of authority, right? And what happens is that not everyone, though, is necessarily able or receptive to hear that message, right? They don't necessarily want to hear that drill sergeant, drilling into their ear. I'm not saying that's what you do now, but at some point, what you are teaching and what you are helping people do is to master themselves
Yeah.
and to get that, and to get that part going. Talk to me a little bit about how that works, right? In terms of when somebody comes to you, when somebody comes into your masterminds or your courses, and like what kind of bell are you looking to knock with them in
That's a,
order to make it in order to make it work for them?
Yeah, it's funny because I know how I look and I know how I can behave. And I'm definitely a bro. I've ran a CrossFit gym for 12 and a half years as an entrepreneur. Um, but it's funny because I'm much more puppy than I am military mindset when it comes to how I deal with people. And so I learned as a part of running a CrossFit organization, one thing that we are, if you run a CrossFit gym, is you become an expert at fielding a professional team who doesn't make a lot of money. The people that I employed, I had 15 coaches, and I would say 12 of them at any given time were making $300 or $400 a month from us. They were teachers or doctors or police or any number of different professions, but we weren't paying their rent. And they were showing up on time, in fact, early. They were staying late. They were executing at an unbelievably professional level. And by the way, continue to do so today. And so you find very quickly that the stick just doesn't work in that scenario. And so you have to learn how to understand the carrot much better. And so let's translate that into what I do with clients now, entrepreneurs that come to me now. I'm not a guru. I don't sell answers, Jeff. I sell questions. And so when I sit down with an entrepreneur, I'm willing and able to ask them a series of questions that almost always give me similar results. And so once I've identified by asking these questions exactly where the pain points are for these entrepreneurs, it's almost never more than 2 or 3 questions away from very foundational things that I help people to figure out, which is like, what is the mission that you're on with your business? Why is it important to you? What are your core values personally, and what are your core values as a business? And how do you take the magic that's between your ears and scale that out to science so that we can actually scale it and impact the world in a massive way? And so essentially that's what we do with Dynasty Defined. And I had a mentor, Alex Charfin, who once told me this story, and I know he says it often, but I want to give him credit. And this is why I love the term Dynasty Defined, is because he said, listen, if you walked up to, I'm Chicago, and if you walked up to the Chicago Bears training facility on the very first day of training camp, and you talked to the wide receiver who just got drafted and he's never been through the door before, never met a coach, never met another player, and you ask him what his lifetime goal is, he's going to say, I want to go to the Hall of Fame. You could say, how are you going to get there? He's going to say, I'm going to win multiple championships as a Chicago Bear. And how are you going to get there? We're going to win the championship this year by beating these teams and our division rivals or whatever. And how are you going to do that? I'm going to walk through those doors. I'm going to do these sets and reps in the gym. I'm going to learn these plays. I'm going to work with these coaches and these players. So on day one, before that guy ever walks through the door, there's a culture that's been established to explain to him how to accomplish the biggest, hairiest goals possible. How many of you that are entrepreneurs or even work for a company can honestly say that every employee or even any employee at your organization could do the same?
That is heavy. No, and I'll tell you why. Because as I'm thinking about talk about that, like walking in and already having a plan, already knowing what it is that like what you want, what that North Star is. That is huge, right? That is, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Like, we're always out looking for coaches. We're looking for people that have already achieved what it is that we want to achieve so that they can help us cut through, the red tape, and I don't have to go to 2 years of the University of Hard Knocks in order to get it, right? I would much rather just pay somebody to help me get cut through all that BS in order to make it happen. I
Hmm.
see that a lot with with coaches like Alex, with like with Russell Brunson. It's like, yeah, you can go and read the books, right? You can go and read you can go and read his website. You can listen to Alex's podcast. It is full of great
Yeah.
information, right? But at the end of the day, if you took no action to actually implement that, or if you didn't even know what action to take, you are actually at a disadvantage, right? You are actually like, you're just walking through it, and it just sort of goes in one ear, ferments in there a little bit, maybe it'll go out another. But until you actually put a step-by-step plan that this is going to take me from point A to point B, it's not going to happen. All you did was you just passed a lot of time, right?
Hmm.
How do you help then people set those goals and figure out what it is that they really need to do in order to achieve them, right? Because it's like, it's one thing to say like, oh, I want to make $1 million this year, right? All right, great. Like, how are you going to do it? You're gonna are you going to get one client that's going to pay you $1 million to do it? Or are you going to get two clients that are going to pay you $500,000? It's like there are different ways that you can slice and dice that kind of goal, right? And it just really depends on the type of, like what do they have? Do they have a product that's worth $10,000? Right? Then they would just go and do whatever that multiple is, right? How do you help then entrepreneurs really figure that out, and what would be the best pace for them? What would be the correct steps to make that happen?
Yeah, it's funny because I think for starters, it's questions. But going back to my experience as a banker, and previous to that, I was a digital communications engineer in the Army. And so both of those cases were very analytical jobs, but they taught me how to troubleshoot. So how to take a big problem. Hey, the light's not working, or the electricity's not working in this whole building, right? And to break that down to, okay, well, where in the building does it come in? And let's test that. And where does this and where does that? And you break down these big problems into these very small consumable bites, and very quickly troubleshooting and solving any problem becomes very, very simple. So now let's add that to what I do with entrepreneurs. Well, with entrepreneurs, very often, we put them in front of very short, essential style videos that give them the concept of what is a good goal. Well, a good goal is based more on inputs than it is on outputs. So we want to be able to base your goals on things you can control. So rather than saying, I want to win the world championship in the MMA, I would say, I want to go train in these different disciplines these many times in a row, and, compete with this level of competition. And then hopefully I'll win the championship, right? But I let them come with their goals to our workshop. And when they bring it to the workshop sessions, I simply ask them a series of clarifying questions. And very, very quickly, those folks that built their goals on sand, you'll see them crumble and be adjusted, and we'll adjust them on the fly. And very quickly, the folks that built them on sound logic and the scaffolding of the frameworks that'll help them to achieve those goals, very quickly you start to see that for each one of these big goals or big problems or whatever they may be, it's just a series of consistently smaller and smaller questions that need to be answered. And so I think a lot of times visionary entrepreneurs who are dreamers at heart, they think about the one big question and one big problem. And so that the answer that they have, that they come up with, sounds like it's going to be great. I'm going to make $1 million. How are you going to make $1 million? Well, I'm going to do it by this, and this. Okay. And how are you going to acquire those people? I'm going to do it by this, and this. And you just keep asking questions and you break these things down. We actually just did a 4-hour annual meeting yesterday, myself and my assistant, Mo. And we started with what we could possibly do in the next year. We then discussed each of those things and figured out exactly what the benefit would be and exactly how much effort it would take to get there. And then we started to work that back to, okay, well, what will we do? And then the constituent bites of solving those problems. And so now I'm actually faced with a different challenge, which is, Jeff, I know exactly what I need to do today to achieve my big, hairy goal for the whole year. And it feels like, well, gosh, I want to do it all right now. And so this is another new problem for us.
What's great about those kind of goals is that, you could get lucky, and, they could manifest themselves very quickly. And then, mid-year, you have to come up with another goal. But I think more to the point, what happens is, you come to one or two realizations. Either you make that goal based off of a big hairy need, right? I
Mhm.
need to make X number of X number of dollars because my rent, my mortgage is going up, or things like that. Or you're trying to make it so that you can achieve some kind of other goal, maybe for someone else, helping out, getting your kids into into some college or whatever, right? So what happens when those priorities and those goals morph, right? When they turn into something that, this was a great idea in January, but now I'm in April and it's like, yeah, that doesn't sound so good anymore. I need to pivot. What would you say is the best way to pivot in that kind of situation?
Well, this is why I challenge these ideas so much for myself and for my clients early, because I do have this concept of like, hey, listen, the thing that I'm most proud about, at least as an employee, was the missions that we accomplished in the Army. And there is just no way that I would have made it through basic training, let alone AITN training, or gone to Iraq twice and did these incredibly difficult missions if I could have quit or if there was any alternative options. And so I enlisted in the United States Army for 4 years. And Jeff, I spent exactly 4 years in the Army, and that's what I needed. I didn't need 4 years in a day, and I couldn't have gotten out one day earlier. And so when I talk to folks about their big goals, I really do throw stones at those goals. I play the devil's advocate. I try to get them to shake off of those things, because so many visionary entrepreneurs are cursed by what we call shiny object syndrome, which is really just having a great idea and going in one direction, and then having another great idea that's in a different direction and pivoting. And the problem is when you do that, you're walking like you're drunk. And so what I try to do is get them to define for me exactly what the mountain is that they want to climb in as much detail as possible. What do you feel like? When do you wake up? What are you doing? How much money do you make? What are the products? What are the clients? Everything. And then I just try to make sure that we never take any steps unless they are leading us up that mountain. I very much identify with the concept of like a shepherd trying to help you, or a Sherpa trying to help you get up to where you're trying to go.
I love that. Thank you so much for explaining that part, because I think that's really the core of what we're talking about here. Is that you're not necessarily going to be performing these goals for them. You're not just going to be there to be the no person, like break it apart. What you're really doing, and that's also what happens in basic training. It's not just about yelling at these young kids
Oh,
to
no.
make it happen. It's about building them up,
Yeah.
right? And it's about building them up together. So I can really appreciate that. Jason, can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about you and how they can reach out to you directly?
Of course, but before I do, if you're still listening to the show, it's because you love Jeff and you love this podcast. He's pouring his heart and soul into this, and really doing an amazing job. This is an unbelievable show for you, and you're getting it for free. So, first, I would have you go to his page, like and review, and share this show, because he's doing a great job. And if you still have energy left at all, you can find me at www.spearandclover.com. I would love to invite you to come for a free test drive of our bi-monthly Spear and Clover Mastermind. We feature an expert guest speaker, as well as small group breakout sessions where we actually mastermind and help solve each other's biggest problems. Other than that, my platform of choice is Instagram. I'm Jason Skeesick on Instagram, or Spear and Clover on Instagram. And I'm both of those things on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So yeah, would love to hear from anybody. Like I said, I genuinely have never gotten off of a call with an entrepreneur without more energy than when I got on. So I would love to hear from you.
I love it. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about this stuff, and I really appreciate you bringing the energy to this show.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate